So,
Let's make it happen.
nice. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Pointless Stories with Koshin FS. This is season 2, episode 7. We were in between social media, RICO, witness protection, and the 5 families. So, we're just going to go back to our rabbit hole, and we hope you enjoy this. But, Kosh, let's start with the basis of the Italian mafia, right? And the Sopranos, as you were talking about it. Even though that's fictional, like, the 5 families and the sense of loyalty and the omerta and how they did operate. To be honest, the Italian mafia started out because, Italian immigrants couldn't rely on the police and they paid for their protection. So it was a need of the time when they did start out, and the 5 families that, not the 5 families, that's more New York, but the mafioso, and they don't call themselves that. They do have another name. They don't call themselves the mafia. They call it our thing. But
the thing of ours,
what's
La Cosa Nostra.
La Cosa Nostra, yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And they have a
no
thing
doubt.
where they say, just let us dip our beaks in it, which means, if you're a business owner, you give a certain percentage of your profit to,
It's same in Hindi, man. It's like, मैं अपनी थोड़ी चोंच गीली कर लेता हूँ.
Oh, but it sounds so much more baghair than Hindi. But
Can you believe it, man? But it's the same exact thing. It's the same expression, probably the same word.
हाँ यार, मगर ये हिंदी वाले तो यार विलन उतने भी अच्छे ड्रेस या इतने अच्छे, like he's not Italian, I mean he doesn't need pasta. बंदा तो ये मुंबई का वो चौधरी लगते भाई. तो so La Cosa Nostra and the Omerta and dipping their beaks in it, it was a way of life, I guess. 1700s, 1800s. And then you get to the point where the mafia as a whole has become so stated that they're a part of life, and they have a lot of influence. You see movies like The Godfather coming out in the 70s, and this is at the tail end of La Cosa Nostra. But how they were taken down, what RICO has to do with it, what the Omerta has to do with it, and how an organization that has been around for generations, can get taken down so easily. I think you agree with me on this one. I don't think that's completely on the FBI as praise. I think they did have, they were coming apart at the seams. But let's go into that one. Let's see what you figure. Let's see, let's look at the history of the mafia and its downfall.
Well, the thing is, even before they'd landed in America, there was, mafioso were a thing in
Sicily,
Italy.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
Sicily and Calabria as well, where they still have a major presence in Italy.
Yeah, and just apologies, but like most of the 5 families, most of the mafioso, they trace themselves back to Sicily. Like you had to be from there. You couldn't just be Italian, could you?
Yeah, like but it depended because La Cosa Nostra was Sicilian, they were pure Sicilian.
Yeah.
And you had to trace your origin back to Sicily.
Yeah.
Obviously they had people like, in The Godfather they showed like their consigliere, right? Like
the Irishman. Higley? What was his name?
I think that was it, right? Yeah. He was like, he was Irish, but he was adopted into the family.
Yeah, Tom.
But,
Tom something.
But beyond being like Tom, what was it? It was like a very Irish name,
Very Irish, yeah.
But yeah, like they showed that in the show, in the movie as well, right? That he can become part of the family, like the family, because he's like,
Yeah.
But the thing is, man, like La Cosa Nostra is only one mafia organization. Right. Like there are other mafias as well,
Mm-hmm.
like the Calabrian mafia is different. That's it's a different family altogether. It's called the Ndrangheta.
Mm-hmm.
And they're even bigger. Like they're much bigger now, especially.
Right.
And it's like a regional thing, every region has kind of like its own mafia,
Mm-hmm.
So the ones who came to America, man, they were like of all backgrounds, America and Canada as well. Like in Canada, there's a big presence in Toronto and Montreal.
Right.
these are the places that are close to New York, right?
Yeah.
Which is where they were based, which makes sense.
Yeah.
There was Al Capone, who was in Chicago, though, but that's a story, you know?
Yeah, that's more like Prohibition era, yeah.
That's right. But then, you know, I think, like, what started to trouble people was corruption at the upper echelons, because, like, once you start to have, like, police chiefs, you know, and like police officers and like people in senior positions of government, when they start to become compromised, that's when it starts to affect like the everyday person's life, you know?
Yeah.
Because now you have to work within a system that's compromised at the very top.
True.
Right? So it's because of that corruption that more like people took up the cause of going after these organizations. And like, you know, that I think was the big, and also the violence associated with it when it started to like show up in the way of like, you know, shootings on like city streets, you know, where like innocent bystanders could have been killed or were killed, you know. When it starts to spill over into like the ordinary person's life, I think that's when like lawmakers, you know, feel like, okay, now we need to go after this, because this is like, I'm sure a lot of people would be on board with, you know, with this. And that's really what happened. I think, you know, it got to a point where they were like, you know, we can't have a city where people are like afraid, you know. And now that used to be New York City at the time. Like, even if you watch movies that were based in the city back then, like all of Taxi Driver, for example, right? It's based in the 70s.
Yeah.
And it just shows you like what a shithole it was back then, you know? Like, because, they just filled the city with all kinds of filth, you know? And like, it was just a state of lawlessness, you know, where like people don't feel safe, people don't want to live there. And that's obviously not in the city's interest, you know? And I think their biggest accomplishment, though, was, man, like, the thing families would pride themselves on the most was that they have a code, you know?
Yeah.
Like, that's the biggest thing, is like, because obviously it's like, if you talk about organizations and like the money they make, the influence they have, like lots of organizations have accomplished that, you know?
Yeah.
And like, lots of people have made like tons of money, but it's like, it's kind of like there's a code of honor by which they abided, you know?
Yeah.
So it's the same with the bikies as well. They pride themselves on just brotherhood and fraternity.
Yeah.
That's a big part of the organization, right? Being part of it is that you're always loyal.
Yeah.
And that's why you have like, you know, that's why you're killed if you're not loyal, right? Because there's such a high value placed on it, you know?
True.
And even if you think of it from a purely like, from a standpoint of like principles, I think it was also like a moral victory over the five families, because they were able to break the code, you know? They were able to get senior people in these organizations, like under bosses, and like to like turn government witness, you know, to become informed and to rat on their own people, you know. And to do that, man, is like it's like they were able to defeat them even like even in like moral terms, you know.
I agree with you. There's just two things I want to say. Like, one thing, I'm not really sure, this is just an opinion I'd like to ask you, but I've always felt that the New York accent has an Italian tinge to it. And the second thing, coffee. I'm walking.
Coffee. It really does, man. It does. But no, tell me the second thing.
The second thing is the witness protection program. Like, in its entire history of existence, I did think that it got better the closer that we got to the elimination of the La Cosa Nostra. But the witness protection program as a program has never failed. Like, until somebody has violated protocol, nobody's died or been found, you know. So that's pretty amazing. Like, it's I can understand that it's pretty easy to do in the United States because there's so many, you know, unknown towns. But
for sure, man.
It's pretty impressive. Like, you don't see witness protection programs outside the United States too often. And you also don't see it outside this context of where there's revenge, you know. So I think the WPP is something that really was tailor made for the mafia, and I don't think it's as relevant now. Like I don't see too much going on right now, but like it's I think it does contribute to, you know, how they were able to take down this kind of organization.
No, definitely, man. Because if they wanted to like flip guys, they needed to assure them that no matter what happens, like people won't be able to get to you, you know. And I think that's like the trade that they made, you know. Like we talked about plea bargaining. Like these guys, they got into plea agreements, you know. In fact, that was the whole purpose of RICO, was to like make it so that you could use that as like a bargaining chip, you know.
True.
Like you arrest a guy and say, well, you have two options. You can either go to life in prison for selling heroin, or you can like become informant for us, you know. And man, most people with families, and like obviously these guys have families outside of the family, right? And then according to the oath, like you have to put your family over above your family, if you know what I mean.
I know
you know.
Nice, yeah.
But what people did was the exact opposite. And the fact that they were able to accomplish that, you know, to like break an organization and break its very code, you know, get people to break the very foundation on which the organization sits. Even purely in terms of like principles, you know, like I think it was a huge victory because these organizations place a lot of value on that. In fact, man, even if you don't become like an informant, right? Even if you admitted that the organization exists, even that was seen as like a no-no, you know?
Exactly. They had it so well done, didn't they? But like I remember in the early 2000s, John Gotti, you know, his sons were on a reality show. I don't know what it's called The Gotti Show or something like that. And they were just like Jersey trash, you know? That's what they were. And that's how far they'd come. Like John Gotti used to get photographed. He was in the papers. Everybody knew he was a mob boss. And that wasn't how things always were, you know. They did have a good sense of secrecy to it. Like, you could go to a mafia joint and not know it's a mafia joint. Like, it'd just be a pizza place. And there's also an episode in The Sopranos when he kind of runs into a guy who's in witness protection. And that only happens because he's breaking protocol. And that's something that is stated, you know, even though it's a fictional show. In terms of witness protection, it's very often quoted, that episode, because that is literally the only way that you'll get found in witness protection.
Dude, it's crazy to remember that episode because, you know, the creator, David Chase, he said that that's his favorite episode of the whole series.
No way.
Yeah,
it is a good episode.
Yeah, it's called College because he's when he's taking his daughter to like see colleges, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the thing. It's you said exactly that. What you said before was exactly right. That there's all these remote towns in America that are like, they often call it like bumfuck Ohio.
Nice.
It's in the middle of bumfuck nowhere, and like no one would expect like would go there to find you, you know. And if your name's not on any kind of like public database, like how do you find someone?
Exactly.
They really miss every trace, and that's another way in which I think, like you said, the success rate of the WPP, right? That I think was another W for the FBI, just because another thing the organization prides itself on is their ability to find you.
Yeah, they'll find you anyway. Yeah, true.
Yep, and that's what even on The Sopranos, right? That's something that's hinted throughout the show, or like shown throughout the show, is like these people disappear to like to places that you've never heard of, and then they're like, he's at this motel at this location, you know?
Yeah. Exactly.
But yeah, man, that was an interesting episode because the only reason he bumps into him is because he's going to he's showing his daughter around to colleges, right? Yeah. Like she's in like in like high school, grade 12, going off to college next year, and like he's going to like these remote places. College towns are usually like away from cities, you know, just in the middle of like an hour away from the nearest city.
Yeah.
he's going to like New Hampshire or like somewhere in New Hampshire. He sees like this guy that he thought he recognized.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, man, you're right. Like it's something that's never really happened in real life, but they show it happen on The Sopranos.
Yeah, and like I agree. Like I think the kind of loyalty we have is perfect for being part of La Cosa Nostra. But I don't know what really changed. You know, like you would see guys spend a lifetime in the can. It was normal. You know, mafia guys get picked up. They go to the can and they spend their lives there. But I think at some point they got so used to their lives that they wanted to take the plea bargain. And maybe it's just, I don't know, like a lot of this is to the praise of the FBI, but at the same time, like the mafia really did lose its morals as well.
Yeah, man, but it was all after Rico, though, bro. Like, that's when it started to fall apart because you were looking at both criminal and civil penalties.
Mm-hmm.
So, man, back then it was like, even if guys went away for like life in prison, right, which was like not very common.
Yeah.
There were only some crimes for which there was a life, life sentence. Like if you were, if like murder, for example, that's when you would be looking like maximum of life sentence.
Mm-hmm.
But after Rico, man, even like any kind of like interstate crime, like if you were caught like trafficking drugs, across state lines, that's automatic 30 years or life in which for most of these guys would amount to the same thing, you know?
Yeah.
So, man, like, you're looking at life for even something as minor as that, you know?
Yeah.
And on top of that, there's civil penalties as well. So you're not able to leave anything behind for your family. So back then, man, a lot of these guys were like family guys too, right? So they were like, they were like, okay, even if I go away to prison, my family's still taken care of.
Yeah.
Whereas now they hit you with like civil penalties too, you know, like civil forfeitures. They could forfeit your whole house. You would have to declare bankruptcy. There's like, your family would be fucked too, you know. So they really used everything they had against them. And it's crazy, man. But they actually managed to take them down.
I'm surprised it took them so long. You know, they could have done this at any point.
Yeah, man. Honestly, I mean, I think the public pressure at that point was more than ever. Yeah. And, the mayor of New York at the time was Rudy Giuliani, which is...
who's become a clown now. Yeah.
Yeah, man. It was a clown now. I mean, even back then, like...
True.
He really took on because of, like... it became very popular, you know? Like, to take a crime stance as well. Yeah. Because... people were sick of it. New Yorkers especially were sick of it, you know?
Yeah.
Like just the crime in the city, just how like unsafe things were. Mm-hmm. Even the whole story of Travis Bickle, right, becoming radicalized is when he sees like what New York had turned into, you know? Yeah. And this is a guy who like served in Vietnam, you know? Like he'd seen the horrors of war, and even he would be appalled to see the things that were happening in New York, you know? I think... that really says something, you know, like that a veteran is appalled by the state of like not just any major city, not just a major city, but the major city, and to see it just in like complete filth, you know. And I think Giuliani like played to that. He was like, you know, he saw that people really wanted a tough on crime mayor, and like he went on board with that, you know, to, again, scoring political points.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I think it needed to be done. And I think even people who are against like the approach that they've taken against, you know, like war on terror, war on drugs, war on organized crime.
Yeah.
Even they agree that, man, it was important. It was like necessary to just for the sake of New York City.
I agree, but also, dude, globally, right, around that time, the same movements were happening. Like if you look at India with Dawood, or if you look like at Liari or a bunch of other places, it was all getting cleaned up at around the same timeline, you know? तब तक किसी को कोई मसला नहीं था. And it was at that point...
दाऊद का तो यह थोड़ा मुख्तलिफ है क्योंकि उसका तो after he got involved with terrorism, that's when like people started to take issue.
Yeah.
until it was organized crime, man, everyone was in on the racket. Like, he was even tight with like Bollywood actors, you know? Like, it was so common for him to like chill with these guys, and you know, he was like a public personality, just like John Gotti, you know?
Do you remember the Sharjah cricket stadium?
Yeah, he would just be chilling there, right? Like, but जो यार जब फिर वो धमाके हुए थे उसके बाद से, you know, I think
nice, yeah.
जो यार जो जिसको पाकिस्तान में खुदकुश हमले कहते हैं, you know, या man, they have ways of like euphemizing dehshatgardi that I've never heard. Like इत्तेहाद पसंद, you know.
Nice. Dude, I agree with you. इतने तमीज से इतने बुरे बात कहते हुए कि हमें भी मोहब्बत हो जाता है. सही है.
वाकई में, you know, they treat them with such respect, like it's like, you know, इत्तेहाद पसंद के ना ये कुछ चीज हासिल करने जा रहे थे.
जी.
But bro, once he got in with that, that's when they were like, okay, man, now it's like something that, you know, where we need to really draw the line. But yeah, man, even here, like in Canada, you know, it was only after like civilians got caught in the crossfire that government stepped in and like, you know, took measures, whereas like they wouldn't really have done that if, you know, it just kind of went on business as usual.
True. And globally also, a lot of major cities have gotten cleaned up, you know. Like today, it's safe to go to a big city, but that wasn't always the case, you know. So I think it's changed in not exactly our lifetime, but like in and around 30-40 years. New York is safer than, let's say, Syracuse, for example. Because small town crime is still a thing, but it's not always been the case, you know. Like it's the same with Mumbai, you could say, you know. It used to have like a reputation for crime, and it's pretty much a lot safer now. But I don't know, maybe it's just a global trend, but the mafia and that rabbit hole was really entertaining. I just want to, like, just before we foray into something, I would just want, like, this story is really nice, stuck in my head as well. So, Junaid Akram was a guest on Ahmed Ali Bhatt's podcast, and Ahmed Ali Bhatt is like, you know him, he's from NCC, from EP. तो बंदा काफ़ी famous है, and I'm always surprised by how many people in the Pakistani entertainment industry know Zulfi and talk about him. But the guy from Cole, you know, the guy from EP as well. He's also the guy behind Coke Studio, behind Nescafe Basement. But they were talking, and so Junaid Akram is actually from Ludhiana, say. तो उसकी तो उसकी दादा कारोबार करने आए थे कराची, सही, मोज़े लेकर. तो क्या हुआ कि मतलब 1947 की दौर थे और 14 अगस्त की वक्त था. So वो कारोबार, मतलब he came to sell socks, and इंडिया तो इंडिया हो गया, पाकिस्तान हो गया. तो बंदा वहाँ कराची आए थे लुधियाने से. तो जी that's how he ended up in Karachi. और उसने उसकी बीवी को बताया था कि मैं यहाँ जा रहा हूँ. तो 5 दिन बाद बीवी और सब लेकर बच्चे सब लेकर आए कराची. तो ऐसा फैमिली शिफ्ट हुआ उसके, और उसके बाद वो तो कराची का बंदा बन गई. But it was pretty interesting to me. Junaid Akram is really quite an interesting person to listen to, but at the same time,
he's entertaining, man.
He is, but at the same time, I feel like he's a little bit controversial that he doesn't need to be. Do you know what I mean? Like he gets a lot of crap that he doesn't need to. Like काफी लोग समझते हैं कि बंदा तो atheist है नहीं भाई. But he has controversial opinions, and a lot of people like that, people who are not very careful, people who care more about the message than about how they look saying it, very often get taken down or get into trouble. That's not necessary. it's always better to be a little bit careful. And also Ahmed Ali Butt, by the way, who has a podcast, he has a very like, I don't know how to express this, but he has like this voice that is perfect for radio, you know, like it's got the right bass, it's got a little bit of a growl. It's very like the later it gets in the night, the more I sound like this, like the deeper your voice gets, you know. It's perfect for radio.
That's amazing, dude. You know, that actually like really resonates with me, because my granddad was a newsreader on public radio.
I did not know this.
Nice. It's like you know, the thing is, it's like a very long story, and it's something like, you know, like it's there's a lot of layers to it, you know. But it's something that doesn't come up often, because he grew up in a very, like, he was born in like pre-partition India, right? And then even as like when he stepped into like working and stuff, India was still like pre-partition.
Yeah.
And then, so this is a long time back. Like, people who grew up in that era would remember, but it's obviously a long time back now.
Yeah.
But they would say the same about his voice, where it was like, and they would say buland awaz, you know?
Oh, nice. Yeah.
It's like a certain voice that you have that's perfect for morning news, you know? And I think in any country, like, newsreaders like that are kind of known by their voice, or some people are just known by their voice in general, you know. And it's often narrators or
Morgan Freeman,
like
David, what's his name, the guy who does Planet Ed?
David Attenborough.
Yeah, perfect.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a perfect example. Even Morgan Freeman.
Yeah, I just said Morgan Freeman. Yeah, apologies, I know you didn't hear it, but like literally saying.
Oh, my bad.
No.
But yeah, Amitabh Bachchan in India, you know, is definitely known for having a narrator's voice, you know? Like, he's narrated so many iconic films.
Yeah.
And the other group you associated with is, like, radio, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, man, like, I would... people who grew up in that time, they would still tell me, you know, like, we remember hearing, like, your granddad's voice every time we woke up in the morning.
Nice.
Like, yeah, we'd be having our morning coffee and, like, listening to the radio, and we would hear, like, you know, like, his voice delivering, like, the morning news, and, you know, Jo, you know, is hafte ke samachar, you know.
Nice.
And yeah, man, having a recognizable voice and like an impactful voice, I think it's so like such a unique thing to have, you know.
I agree, and dude, like in terms of the jobs that were around at that time, they seem much more fulfilling, don't they? Like, if you were somebody who was a newscaster, right, and people knew you, respected you for that, it's not just a job, it's a career, you know, it's a purpose in life, because people, they depend on you. You don't see that kind of job satisfaction now. You don't. Like, all of us just sat in cubicles doing things. You know, nobody, like, you make money, but we don't really have an impact like that anymore.
Man, you're so right about that. And part of me still looks for that kind of fulfillment in places where, even though I know it's like, I look for them in places where I'm not going to find it. But I do have to accept it as like a relic of that era, you know, because media has changed, and just it's so saturated now where, you know, nothing really, the shelf life of anything is very short.
True.
Like things that were big like a week ago, people have forgotten about them already, you know?
True.
Like nothing really like stays in our memory for too long anymore.
Yeah. Everybody gets 15 minutes of fame. That's it.
That's it. Honestly, man. Like that's the shelf life of a tweet. You know, you think about it is like a few hours.
Yeah.
You know? And then the tweet is like lost in oblivion. You know, it disappears into obscurity, and no one's ever going to engage with a tweet again, you know?
And people spend their entire lives trying to have a viral tweet, you know? That's how pointless our lives are.
Yeah, man, that's definitely discouraging, you know, when you compare it to, like, the past. And especially when you think about, you know, Man, I've met like strangers, right? Like people who, like I've never, met this person before. We're not related in any way. We don't have any connection.
Mm-hmm.
They were just introduced to us, and they happen to be of an age where, like, they would have been, in their youth when, like, my granddad was around,
Yeah.
And then somehow it would just come up, like, about him,
Mm-hmm.
and then they wouldn't believe it, They would be like, man, like, that was my whole childhood, Like, I would wake up to, like, like chai and, like, your granddad's voice.
Nice.
And so many people that I know personally were growing up in that time, like, they've told me that, that's just, that was a household name in that era. If you were growing up in, like, in North India at that time, that you would have like known this person,
Mm-hmm.
And like you might not even know what he looks like, but you would know what he sounds like.
Nice.
Yeah, TVs weren't really common back then. It was very rare to have a TV.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until later that he started giving news on television. But for the longest time, man, they knew him from the radio. And I think about, like us, and we're like the Great Depression, where the Great Depression is our lives.
We have no Great War, no Great Depression. Man, that is so true. I cannot believe how often we come back to Fight Club. जितने मैं उसको ironic समझना चाहता हूँ, यार हकीकत बनने जा रहा है.
Okay, I mean, I don't want to live with that sense of like meaninglessness.
Yeah.
And it often does feel that's how things are,
Exactly, man. But just on looking for things, in the wrong place. Now I don't particularly go clubbing, but I was once told by an acquaintance of mine, you never meet your wife in the club. To say, yeah. But like, it is interesting how I'm always surprised by your family history. It's also काफी अजीब that we've been friends for a long time and we absolutely have never met each other's families. काफी अजीब बात है. but यार मैं हमेशा कहता हूँ हम तो वो घर लेके आने के बंदा भी नहीं है. तो छोटे उम्र में हाँ यार छोटे उम्र में दोस्त ने ही घर लेकर आए और आजकल बीवी नहीं है. तो यार it's honestly pretty interesting कि I understand what you mean. Like, I've heard not my dad but my granddad talk about personalities on the radio, and life used to be different back then. Like, the morning news was actually just the morning news. You had to wait till the evening to get more news, and now everything's at the push of a button, so it doesn't make sense to do that anymore. But I know there's still famous newscasters. I'm not going to say that's not a thing, but at the same time, news has become more of like opinion shows. You've got your Piers Morgan. Who's the guy before? Who's the guy that wore suspenders? Man.
Oh, Larry David.
Larry David. Yeah, exactly. So.
Yeah. No, sorry. There was Larry David is a Seinfeld creator of Seinfeld. I'm thinking of Larry.
Larry King.
Larry King,
yeah,
my bad, dude.
It's alright. But Jewish, it's fine. But yeah, but exactly, yeah. So it's become less and less of a thing, Like even Tonight Show hosts. Like, I remember growing up, Jay Leno was on the Tonight Show, and it was
for sure, Letterman.
Yeah, Letterman, and Conan came in later on. You don't see that anymore. Like, I don't even care about who's on the Tonight Show anymore, because what tonight? Like, what's the point? So TV content, all of that has changed over time, but you no longer have iconic personalities. I don't think you have iconoclasts the way you used to. But falling back into social media, buddy, because this episode's like halfway through and we've talked about everything but to like close out that topic, here's what I wanted to say. कि मैंने कहा था कि बुरे वक्त से गुजर रहे अभी, but the thing is, what really bothers me, and I want to put this out there, is like every time I open social media, there's a part of me that I've always felt is unfulfilled, or like a part of me or an aspect of myself that like if you look at like player attributes on like a video game, like if you've got a player who's got like 4 out of 5 in the 90s and then one that's like at 20, right? I would kind of felt like that, because there's a few attributes that I'm lacking in. एंड यार बंदे कभी मुकम्मल नहीं हो सकते, लाइक कभी किसी को मुकम्मल जहाँ नहीं मिलता, बट I always felt like if you have one aspect of you that's kind of lacking, it even you can see how this works politically, you know, like you could want to run for the president's office in the States, but if you don't have a wife, it's not going to work out, you know. You've got to have that perfect family, which is for show, but like at the same time, in terms of my life, it's been something that's been bothering me, and every time I open social media, I've got itne like friends or sab bagairat hai, and all of them are constantly getting married, and that really annoys me. Like the fact that, now it's not like I'm jealous of them, it's not like I'm not happy for them, but it reminds you of what you don't really have going on, and it was playing on my mental health so much. I constantly joke about it, right? But it has an impact on your mental health, because like I told you, meri popo ki beti ki shadi hua tha, and that played on my mind. So it's not like now I'm not shying away from admitting my weaknesses or where I come short, because like मैं अपने आप की काफ़ी ज़्यादा मोहब्बत नहीं करता, मैं अपने आप की दुश्मन हूँ. तो ये बंदे भाई कि मुझे हमेशा लगता है कि काफ़ी कुछ की है, मगर लाइक एक तो बेसिक मसला है बंदे में. और शेरा भी मुझे ये कहा था कि 2-3 दिन पहले, यार अगर आप शादी करना चाहते थे तो कभी कर सकते थे. और ये वाकई सच है कि इट्स नॉट लाइक आई हैव अ प्रॉब्लम फाइंडिंग वुमेन और एनी दैट, इट्स जस्ट दैट आई हैव हाई स्टैंडर्ड्स एंड आई वांट दिस वन थिंग. और यार बंदा इतने ज़िद पर अड़ा हो यार, और मानते नहीं और बदलते नहीं, और यू नो अगर ज़माने के सारे ख़िलाफ़ खड़ना तो ज़रूर है तो खड़ेंगे भाई. तो that kind of pressure, it kind of, and I'm telling you this honestly, like I've put myself up to it, you know, like अगर ख़ता किसी के है तो मेरे है. बट कभी कभी यार पूरे ज़माने को, पूरे दुनिया को ख़िलाफ़ रखने से बंदा तो टूट जाता है. एंड इट्स वेरी इजी, it's almost like it's a promise that's going to happen. तो सोशल मीडिया की ये असर मुझ पर पड़ा था, एंड इट्स नॉट लाइक आई रियली केयर टू मच अबाउट पीपल शोइंग ऑफ, यू नो, their vacations or their like the hotels they're in, the cafes they're in. That doesn't really bother me. It's the personal lives and what people have going on that really kind of gets me thinking about how I never have anything like that going on. और मैं शुक्र अदा करता हूँ कि I'm not with the wrong person, but at the same time I'm also kind of really टूट रहा हूँ इस वजह से कि I know exactly the right person for me, and she knows that as well. But हम दोनों की दरमियाँ इतने it's not like हमारे मसले हैं, मगर हमारे इत्तेहाद में काफ़ी मसले बाकी है. And it's something that I cannot explain to people. Do you know what I mean? Like it makes no sense. Like आप तो समझेंगे, but like मैं आवाम को समझ नहीं सकता ये सब, और ना वो कर सकता. तो इतने असर पड़ा था. हाँ यार, तो इतने असर पड़ा था सोशल मीडिया के कि मैंने सोचा कि बेहतर है कि if I go, I always like to go underground. और जब मिलता है बंदा को, so you kind of feel like, oh my god, ये कब इतनी तरक्की की. You know, if you kind of go in the dark, it's kind of nice to make that comeback.
It definitely is, man.
हाँ, मगर मुझे पता नहीं भाई कि मैं लौट आएंगे कि नहीं. सोशल मीडिया पर नहीं, मैं ज़िंदगी की बात कर रहा हूँ. I don't know. वाकई में, and I want to admit this to myself in, you know, the year I'm 30. I want to say this because I don't want my moments of strength being like आपने मुझसे कहा था यार काफ़ी 1.5 साल पहले कि dude, the amount of resilience you have is immeasurable. ये मैं मानता हूँ कि यार जब मैं बुरे वक्त तब तो जब गुजरा था, I was that dickhead, and I've always been. मैं काफ़ी resilient बंदा हूँ कि you know, you knock me down, I'll come back. अब मुझे कोई फ़र्क नहीं पड़ता. वो विराट कोहली वाला माइंडसेट है. मगर आजकल मैं किसी से हार नहीं रहा. मैं अपने आप से हार रहा हूँ कि बंदा तो टूट जा रहा है. एंड आई वांट टू एडमिट दिस, आई वांट टू हैव दिस ऑन रिकॉर्ड सो समडे आई कैन लुक बैक. मुझे पता नहीं कि मैं हार जाऊंगा कि नहीं, मुझे पता नहीं कि मैं इससे बाहर आएगी कि नहीं, but I want to state this because like I said, मेरे इतने successes की highlight reel बनाए कि if there are people who look up to me, I want them to know कि मेरे कितने मसले होते हैं. And people don't realize this, but I have failed more times than they've tried. तो मेरी ज़िंदगी भी उतना आसान नहीं, but I want to say this that right now मुझे लगता ही नहीं कि आई नो द वे आउट और आई एम गोइंग टू बी सक्सेसफुल और मेरे हमसफ़र मेरे बीवी बन जाएंगे. बट इट्स रियली ईटिंग अवे एट मी लाइक एवरी वेकिंग मोमेंट. आई एम नॉट एग्जैक्टली डिप्रेस्ड. आई एम द बेस्ट वे टू पुट इट इज़ लाइक यार बंदा टूट गया, उतना ही कह सकता हूँ. एंड आई वांट दिस ऑन रिकॉर्ड कि मुझे पता नहीं कहाँ जा रही है, बट ये हकीकत है भाई.
Oh man, यार नहीं ये बात तो मैं समझ सकता हूँ यार. I think subconsciously, you I didn't realize this until you said it.
Yeah.
But I think subconsciously that's one of the reasons I went off social media too, is because I was just bombarded with like this, you know, people's like wedding photos and people like getting engaged and like, you know, finding their soulmate and. I know that it's never as perfect as they make it look. Like I know, even if they have someone in their personal life that they love, like they're obviously like as with everything on social media, they're not going to show you like the tough times in their relationship. You never know if they're truly happy, you know, or like what's actually going on behind the scenes. Like you can guess, but like you could be wrong, you know. So I know, but social media makes it look like, you know, some push hand and you know, it feels like everyone's finding love, and you know that can leave you feeling like, wow, bro, like you know, हम तो जाकिर खान की तरह हक से सिंगल हैं.
जी okay. Involuntarily celibate, yeah, incels.
Oh fuck, man! It sounded like you know. But no, man. I mean, often with Uber drivers as well, right? I talk to them often, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a question that comes up that, you know, are you like married or do you have kids or anything like that? And then I've met very few who are like single.
Right.
Like most of them are like, you know, they have families and stuff. But the ones who I've met who are, they usually admit that it's like a natural stage in life, you know.
Yeah.
It's like after, you know, in adulthood, it's just like a natural next step. But it's like, you know, for various reasons, we haven't really like, you know, gone in that direction just yet.
Yeah, and just buddy, I want to have this on the record as well. So I've talked to this about. So I was in a really bad place last week, and I really was completely, really just done with life. Yeah. So I didn't know. Like I didn't know. मुझे यार बात यह है कि मैंने अपनी ज़िंदगी में सिर्फ एक चीज़ मांगा है, और वो मुझे लगता है कि लगा कि अधूरे हो जाएंगे, और ये मुझे एक तो बात सही नहीं लगा. मैं काफ़ी नाराज़ था, मैं शिकावतें कर रहा था खुदा से, मुझे समझ नहीं आ रहा कि हो क्या रहा है. मैं तो इतने ख़ता तो किए नहीं भाई, मैं इतने गुनहगार भी नहीं, और जिस तरह की बंदे को ये सब मिल रहा है वो हमारे काबिल भी नहीं. सही कि जो बेइंसाफ़ी है इज़ वन ऑफ द वेरी फ्यू थिंग्स कि मैं बर्दाश्त नहीं कर सकता ये. तो that was really bothering me, and I talked about this to सहर, और उसने भी यार ये कहा कि तो सहर ने मुझे ये कहा कि यार काफ़ी अच्छी बंदी है, but you know she said if what you're doing doesn't work, right, change it. Like and I know that sounds like it's very easy to think of that on your own, but यार बात यह है कि जो एक्सेप्ट करने में लगते हैं ना कि यार मैं जो कर रहा हूँ, जितना भी मैं समझता हूँ, वो उतना भी अच्छी बात नहीं, और मतलब ऐसे नहीं, but what I think that she helped me understand is that यार आपने वैसे ये कहा था कि कभी कुछ पाने के लिए कुछ खोना भी ज़रूर है. So I had to let go of a part of me, you know. And when Seher was talking to me, she told me like I can see like the light leaving your eyes. And यार मुझे मानना पड़ा कि जो मैं बनना चाहता था ना, कि जिस तरीके से मैं ये सब करना चाहता था, मैं वो कर नहीं सकता. कि आई हैव टू, मेरी जो अप्रोच है या मेरी जो ख्वाहिशात है, जो ख्वाब है, वो बंदी तो मैं रख सकती, मगर और मैं उस पर ज़िद पर अड़ा हुआ है, मैं ढीठ हूँ कि मैं मानता नहीं कि कोई और आगे या कोई और. अगर आपके भाभी ने भी मुझसे कहा कि यार तुम दूसरा देख लो, मुझे कोई एतराज़ नहीं, मैं देखूंगा नहीं. सही, ये मेरी ज़िद है, ये मेरी हक है मेरी मोहब्बत पर, ये मैं नहीं मानेगा. मगर जो तरीके हैं, अगर वो बदलने ज़रूर है. एंड इफ़ इट्स लाइक, मैं काफ़ी मानता हूँ कि यू नो विथ विमेन एटलीस्ट, और विथ आपकी भाभी, कि मैं काफ़ी जेंटलमैनली हूँ, कि मैं रेस्पेक्टफुल हूँ, कि मैं शिवलरस हूँ, और ये सब मैं यार बनना चाहता था. सही, बट नाइस गाइस यू नो फिनिश लास्ट. तो कभी कभी कुछ बदलने पड़ते यार, और कभी कभी ऐसे बनने पड़ते कि कुछ हासिल करने के लिए अपने आप को काफ़ी भूल जाना ज़रूर है. कि एंड दिस इज़ ट्रू, जो भी बंदे, लाइक यू नेवर सी अ मैन इन अ हाई पोजीशन हु हैज़ नेवर हैड टू सैक्रिफाइस एनीथिंग, यू नो. तो जो कुछ नहीं करते वो अपने आप रह सकते हैं भाई, मगर कुछ हासिल करने के लिए कुछ बदलना भी पड़ता है. एंड इट्स वेरी हार्ड कमिंग टू टर्म्स विद दैट. पर्सनली लाइक आई डिड स्ट्रगल विद इट अ लॉट, कि मैं अब भी कर रहा हूँ, कि मेरी वो आदत अब तक नहीं बनी. अगर एक हफ्ते हो गए, नॉर्मली 3 हफ्ते लगते हैं हैबिट फॉर्म करने के, तो मैं भी अब उस ज़माने से गुज़र रहा हूँ कि ये आदत मुझे पहले तो सेट करना पड़ता है. And you know, sometimes you have to change up a few things, you have to change who you are to a certain degree, not exactly the definition of who you are, but how you want to do something. कि सब you know सही तरीके से, मतलब सीधे तरीके से सब नहीं होता, कि कभी कभी कुछ बदलने पड़ते, कुछ नए तरीके से करने पड़ते, कुछ नए सोच होने पड़ते. तो सोशल मीडिया के अलावा ये भी चल रहा है कि मैं अपने आप को देख रहा हूँ कि यार बंदा कर क्या रहा है, वाई इज इट नो वर्किंग आउट, बंदे में क्या कमी है. और यार वाकई ये बात तो ये है कि बंदा, पीपल लाइक अस, राइट, स्पेशली पीपल, आई हैव सेड दिस अ फ्यू टाइम्स, कि जो ये विराट कोहली वाला अनब्रेकेबल माइंडसेट वाले बंदे हैं ना, उसकी जब इम्तिहान आता है, बुरे वक्त आते हैं, यार पूरे ज़माने उसके ख़िलाफ़ खड़े हो जाते हैं. कि हेटर्स हमारे इतना है कि लाइन पड़ी है और शिकावतें इतने पड़ी है, और जो हमारे माइंडसेट है जो इतने अनब्रेकेबल है, फिर भी जब टूट जाता है ना, तो मुकम्मल होने में काफ़ी वक्त लगते हैं यार. कि यू रिमेंबर द स्लम्प दैट विराट कोहली वेंट थ्रू, कि इट्स काइंड ऑफ लाइक दैट, कि सब कुछ खोने पड़ते हैं, यू हैव टू लेट गो ऑफ एवरीथिंग. वो ईगोटिस्टिकल मेनियाक वाला जो सोच है ना, वो आ जाते हैं जहन में, और हम उसमें इतना पड़ जाते हैं कि यू हैव टू ब्रेक एंड बिकम समबडी एल्स ऑल ओवर अगेन. नॉर्मल बंदे की ये नहीं होते, छोटे छोटे विन्स और छोटे छोटे लॉसेस होते हैं. हमारे बड़े बड़े विन्स हुए तो लॉसेस भी बड़े होने ज़रूर है. तो जब वो माइंडसेट टूटता है ना, जब बंदे टूट जाते हैं, काफ़ी मुश्किल है भाई. कि पता नहीं कि यू नो, विराट कोहली said this, he took a month off from even holding a bat, and he said, you know, the day I come back after this 1 month, if it doesn't work, I know this, that I have to give this up forever. कि ऐसे था भाई, कि आप सोच तो सकते हैं कि जिस बंदे की ज़िंदगी ये था, वो छोड़ जाने की, यार खुद ब खुद समझने कि ये शायद आखिर बार हो सकता है कि मैं भी हार जा सकता हूँ. और जो बंदे ने इतने हारा नहीं ना, उसको ये बड़े बड़े हार मानने काफ़ी मुश्किल होते हैं. तो ऐसे वक्त से मैं गुज़र रहा हूँ काफ़ी साल से, शायद 3-4 साल से मेरे बुरे वक्त तो गुज़र रहा है. और मैं शुक्र अदा करता हूँ, मुझे काफ़ी कुछ मिला है कि बुरे वक्त भी हमारे बाकी लोगों की अच्छे वक्त से बेहतर है. मगर जो मेंटल हेल्थ पर ये असर होता है ना, कि वो यार छोटी बात नहीं है. इट्स वेरी हार्ड फॉर पीपल टू सी माई स्ट्रगल्स और आवर स्ट्रगल्स, बट यार ज़रूर होते हैं. एंड पीपल लाइक अस, जो जिसकी जहन इतने तेज़ है यार उसकी मेंटल स्ट्रगल्स काफ़ी बड़ी मुश्किलात होते हैं यार, कि जो बेवकूफ़ है उनकी इम्तहान भी आसान होते हैं, कि उसे समझ नहीं आता है, मगर हमें यार सब कुछ नज़र आता है। और काफ़ी मुश्किल वक्त से गुज़र रहा हूँ, और मैं ये भी नहीं कहता हूँ कि मैं ये एक लाइन भी कल या परसों सुना था कि जब मन्नत ना रहे तो खुदा से क्या दुआ में मांगता है, और ऐसे कुछ चल रहा है आजकल।
नहीं ब्रो, ये तो बहुत क्रेजी सीन है वैसे यार, पर आई लाइक हाउ यू सेड, यू नो, हमारा बुरा वक्त भी लोगों के अच्छे वक्त से बेहतर है, बिकॉज इसमें हकीकत है यार, यू नो, we're still quite blessed despite everything else.
Yeah.
And I think that alone should give you the hope to continue, because man, even if it's not what you want it to be, there's always like something you can do differently to you know, feel, to like to explore, you know, other avenues beyond, like, you know, what it is that you can't have.
Yeah.
Because I think, you know, it's like what Sahar said, like if you don't like what you're doing, you always have like the agency to change it.
Yeah.
I think that's really like a privilege, you know, because so many people don't. They're kind of just stuck in like this, like, you know how a hamster is just kind of like going in circles, right?
True.
They're kind of stuck in a loop, and they can't break out of it even if they wanted to. Whereas like I think as people with agency, man, we can always like do something different, and like, you know, find like something that really, like, you know, fulfills us. But it does require initiative on our part, which can be hard, you know, because a lot of times, man, it's we can be complacent, you know, we don't want to take the initiative to do something different. Like even myself, man, I know like tomorrow I'm probably my day is not going to look any different than today, as much as even though the possibilities are endless, you know, it ends up being like just
the same
routine and predictable, you know.
Yeah, मानता हूँ but यार वाकई ये तो सच है कि हम बदल तो सकते हैं, and this is kind of again coming back to why events of social media. मैं यार गायब होना चाहता हूँ, कि I want to disappear and I want to come back. कि जब यार बुरे वक्त होते हैं या बंदा हार जाता है ना, it's always better to disappear. कि work on yourself, work on what you have to do. You know, I've always got that kind of sense, you know, like put on the music and start working on what you have to do. कि यार ये बुरे वक्त में महफिल में होने से आपकी बेइज्जती के अलावा कुछ नहीं होना है. Like nobody's going to help you. कोई मदद नहीं करेंगे आपके. तो बेहतर है कि गायब हो जाओ, कि लोग को, you know, लोग का काम है कहना, उन्हें तो कहने दो. और जब लौट आते हैं ना, पता नहीं, ये अभी भी शक है कि जब मैं लौट आएंगे, कि कैसे लौट आएंगे, कि हार कर या जीत कर. मगर मैं तो गायब होना तो ज़रूर है भाई. तो I'm going to, you've seen this on social media, like you've seen like reels of this, just disappear for a length of time and work on yourself. You know, Reddit used to have this piece of advice that was passed down through the generations, you know. Delete Facebook, break up with her, hire a lawyer, and hit the gym, right? So,
yeah, dude, for sure. Lawyer up, delete Facebook, what was it?
Yeah,
hit the gym.
Yeah, it's always like the typical advice, right? So, मैं उतना भी बेवकूफ़ नहीं, मगर I do want to disappear. वैसे मैं जिम तो जाता हूँ, मेरे तो लॉयर की कोई ज़रूरत नहीं, and Facebook तो मैं डिलीट कर दी. तो वही आखिर बाकी था. तो पता नहीं यार, मैं वाकई में काफ़ी वक्त तो गायब होने चाहता हूँ. जैसे आप मुझे पता है कि आप कहाँ है, मगर बाकी दुनिया के लिए आप तो गायब है. और मैं भी ये काफ़ी देर के लिए यार गायब होना चाहता हूँ, कि आई डोंट वांट टू टॉक टू पीपल. कि यार अच्छे वक्त में ना लोग आ जाते हैं, मुझे कोई मसला नहीं कि वो आ जाए, वो झूठे तारीफ़ करे, मुझे कोई मसला नहीं. मैं इनसे ये मानता है भी नहीं. लाइक लोग की काम है कहना, वो बुरे कहे या अच्छे कहे, मुझे कोई असर नहीं पड़ता है. मगर मगर जो बुरे वक्त में अगर ये सुनना पड़ता है ना, जो टूटा हुआ इंसान को ये बेइज्जती भी बर्दाश्त कर नहीं सकते भाई। तो मैं अभी इस सोच में हूँ कि कुछ देर गायब हो जाओ, कि अपने आप की मेरे सिर्फ एक ख्वाहिश है, और वो मुकम्मल होने में चाहे मेरे सारी ज़िंदगी लग जाए। कि एक शेर है यार कि राह देखेंगी तेरी, चाहे ज़माने लग जाए, ज़माने लग जाए, ज़माने लग जाए, या आप खुद नज़र आए। और आखिर क्या था, या हमारे दिल सही हो जाए। तो ऐसा है कि मैं ये छोड़ने वाला नहीं यार। मैं हर चीज़ पर मांगने की आ, काबिल हूँ, मगर इस चीज़ पर नहीं। मैं यार इतना कहा कि इसमें हारना ना, मेरी ज़िंदगी में हारना एक ही बात है कि मुझे बेमकसद लगेंगे ये। मैं ये हार नहीं सकता जब तक मैं ज़िंदा हूँ, कि मुझे पता है कि यार जब मैं ये हार माना ना, तो मुझे कोई वजह ही नहीं ज़िंदा रहने के, कि कोई ख्वाहिशात नहीं, कोई चाह नहीं, कोई दिल धड़काने की वजह ही नहीं। तो ये मैं हार नहीं सकता भाई। तो अगर मुझे कोई और तरीके से करना पड़ा या अपने आप को बदलने पड़ा, ये सब हमारे मतलब रह गुज़र में हो जाते हैं, कि मंजिल एक ही रहते हैं बंदा। तो मैं हमेशा ये कहता हूँ कि मोहब्बत में और इबादत में हम शिरक नहीं करते। तो मैं बंदी को बदलने वाले तो नहीं, मैं किसी और से मोहब्बत कर नहीं सकता है। और जो मेरी मोहब्बत है वो मैं बेईमान भी नहीं कर सकता। तो अगर मैं एक बंदा, मतलब जो बंदा मैं हूँ, अगर वो काफ़ी नहीं, या वो सही नहीं, और वो बदलना ही पड़े, तो मेरे पास यार कोई और राह भी नहीं रहा, कि ये लाजिम है। तो देखता हूँ यार कि अब की फ़ैसला ये है कि मैं गायब होने वाले हूँ, और आपको मेरे पता जानते हो। मगर उसके अलावा मैं किसी से ज़्यादा राब्ता ये सब में रखते भाई, कि जो ज़िंदगी में मिलते हैं वो ठीक है। मगर हमेशा लगता हो कि यार, वैसे खान साहब ने ये कहा था कि कभी हार जाने की वक्त में ना कभी शादियां नहीं अटेंड करो, कि लोग आपकी मजाक उड़ाएंगे। और मुझे पता नहीं कि खान साहब ये सब क्यों कह रहे हैं, कि बंदे ने खुद 3 शादियां कर ली है। मगर
और
बात तो
एक तो
सही है।
बल्कि और एक तो जो गैर इस्लामी जो की थी आखिर
हाँ
बुशरा
जो
आंटी के साथ,
हाँ यार।
जो जो आरबी कह रही है कि
हाँ
इन्होंने I think
हाँ
they got married when she was on her period or
ये
something like
वो
that.
उसकी ईद की
Uh,
वक्त पर था, तो इस्लामिक लिए अलाउड नहीं था।
पर पता नहीं यार अभी कैसे पता चला
हाँ यार, शादी होने के इतने वक्त के बाद ये बंदे, मतलब ये सिर्फ दुनियादारी है भाई कि मगर यार बात तो सही है कि मैं अपने किसी से डरता नहीं यार। मगर मैं खुद से काफ़ी नाराज़ हूँ, तो मैं अपने आप को सही करने के लिए कुछ वक्त तो ले रहे, पता नहीं कि बंदा कब लौट आएंगे। मगर ये मैं रिकॉर्ड पर होने ज़रूर है कि लोग मेरे इतने कामयाबी तो देखते हैं, मुझे कभी टूट कर नहीं देखा। आई वॉन्ट पीपल टू सी हाउ मच ऑफ अ स्ट्रगल इट इज़। पता नहीं कि कौन देख रहा है, मगर इट्स काफ़ी हार्ड एंड इट्स ब्रेकिंग मी, कि कभी मैं ये लौट कर आऊँ और सुनूँ तो मुझे अच्छे लगेंगे कि यार ये भी एक वक्त था हमारे। मगर apologies dude, we're almost at the hour mark. I think this is all I have to say about why I have come to this decision. But आप कुछ कहने चाहेंगे, या अगले एपिसोड में कुछ नए शुरू करते हैं?
नहीं यार, आप ये तो आपने जो कहा उसके बाद तो मैं कुछ कहने के काबिल नहीं हूँ, क्योंकि ये तो बहुत ही हैवी बात कह दी यार आपने, तो बेशक अगला एपिसोड शुरू करते हैं ब्रो।
जी जी।
खैर मकदम किया जाए इसका।
तो this has been the Courage and FS Show, Season 2, Episode 7, and this is Social Media Part 2. We'll see you in the next one.